Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I am your co-host, JP John Boss from the Two Man Power Trip. And of course, joining me is my co-host, the wizard himself, Mr. Trumpmania, Mr. Lavi Margolin. Lavi, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Every week we say a special week, but we mean it. So continuing on, especially as we look at the business of the drivers and resources, and one of them is distribution. We've certainly been so grateful for having Mike Weber of Fight on a couple of times, but I'm really excited today. We have Kim Hurwitz, the Chief Marketing Officer of Fight. As I just mentioned to Kim off air, I've been following her work on LinkedIn for quite a while. Kim, pleasure for you to join us. Welcome.
Thanks, and great to be with both of you gentlemen today.
So, Kim, what is CMO? What is the Chief Marketing Officer of FIKE? What do you do? What's your responsibilities? What's going on over there?
Well, you kind of oversee anything to do with marketing, branding, sales, PR and media, affiliate, promotional plans, partnerships, both B2C and B2B relationships. Basically, I have a cheerleader background, and a theater background from UCLA. So I'm used to kind of being in a lot of different places and, kind of making things happen. Most people wouldn't think that theater is a good, like a practical major, right? But actually, it's fantastic for anything to do with marketing or sales or promotional things. Just because it's like, I like to say, it's like being an English major, but you can also act.
Yes, yes. So, are you seeing now with Fight and everything you guys are doing over there? I mean, you're seeing exponential growth. It just seems like more and more being added and bigger you guys are getting.
Yeah, I think we were in the right place at the right time in many ways. I've been doing this business, well, not as long as Mike Weber, but I've known Mike Weber for at least 25 years.
Wow.
And I think this is my 30th. I know, I started when I was like an embryo, I
Mm.
guess. But it's so many things have changed, and yet in a way it hasn't. Like the consumer proposition has never changed. It's just the technology has changed. And I think a turning point, like many people in this space, was the pandemic, because it kind of scared everyone so much when our live events went away, right? I mean,
Yep.
we live on live events. We do 1,000 events a year, and most of them are live, because that's really kind of what works for the pay-per-view business model. And we do a lot of subscription stuff too. And the pandemic actually kind of got us involved in creating what is now Fight Plus. We had Honor Club, and we had a version of Impact back then too. And we had just started kind of working with AEW, and putting together a package of outside the US TV shows. In fact, a lot of people in the US would love to subscribe to AEW Plus, because they find, oh my, well, why can't we get it?
Right.
And we can talk about that later too. But we realized we needed that. We started a very early version of our fast channel, which is Fight 24/7 then as well. We figured we have all this catalog stuff, we should be putting it together. Didn't have advertising, so it was not a fast channel. It was a F channel. It was a free channel. We didn't have all the
Right.
filled out at that time. We also did. We went to stuff that was perfect for the pandemic, like motorsports. And Mike was a big proponent of that because he had his background in motorsports besides pro wrestling.
Yep.
And it was perfect for the pandemic because you're more than 6 feet apart. You're wearing helmets and gloves. You're on a motorcycle. It's like it was made for the pandemic. And we actually got some of the biggest riders, Travis Pastrana and all these really big names. And they weren't doing anything. So we did a lot of that stuff. We had things like jousting. We still talk about the jousting because, again, it's okay. You're not near anyone. You're on a horse and you've got a mask on.
Right.
And then we also I'm friends with Boss Rutan, and he was doing a lot of workouts because his gym was not open. And I lived in LA at the time, and kind of out near in Calabasas, and kind of where his, dojo was. And I knew him from Karate Combat. We can touch base on that too. But he was putting stuff for free on YouTube, and it was fantastic stuff. I mean, here's a UFC Hall of Famer doing workouts that you can join along with at home. And of course, he's so funny and so brilliant. Anyway, I said, boss, can we run this on Fight? And he goes, yeah, sure. As long as you can work out a way to restream it. I said, okay, we can do that. Because really Fight is a technology company, and that's it. Mike is always talking about that, technology first. When it comes to streaming, that's really important. But we need content. You need something to stream, right? Then as the year went on, and I give credit to Dana White for Fight Island and experimenting with doing things maybe different countries. We did that too. We had live Thai kickboxing judo combo from the Philippines that we had 3 days a week, and or maybe it was Cambodia is where it was from. That's where it was from. And then we stumbled into this opportunity really through some connections that I knew from my role at Film On. I knew Ryan Kavanaugh, because he used to be head of Relativity, and he was now head of Triller, and he was putting on the Tyson fight. I go, what? It's just a music app is putting on a Tyson fight. And I asked him about, do you have carriage? Oh yeah, I've got In Demand. I said, well, who's your digital streamer? He goes, well, I don't know. And I said, well, it should be Fight. So
Right.
Anyway, we did that, and it happened. Thanksgiving evening, everyone was home and like nothing to do. And it was the biggest pay-per-view of the year and the 8th biggest of all time. And, it started this great relationship. And now, a year later, Triller bought us. So yeah, ever since then, we've been on this, wonderful trajectory of streaming, which everyone's going to, hats off to Hulu and Netflix and YouTube and everyone else who's kind of paving the way for that. But
for sure.
we're very proud of what we do.
So what is your background just as far as like wrestling, MMA, karate? I know your buddies with Boss, so the karate combat league. Like, so what's the background there with all this combat sports?
Okay, so when it started out, I think the first boxing match I ever saw was Hagler Leonard. And I still think Hagler won.
He definitely won. Yeah.
He was afraid of, not a friend of mine, but unfortunately, he's one of the few boxers I've never met, to my regret. What a gentleman. But it struck me because I loved music and film and theater and whatever, that it was like a dance, it was like art. When you saw someone do this boxing in the ways that they did, and Muhammad Ali was like that too, and Tyson and De La Hoya, there were many. So through the 90s, I got into cable TV, and believe it or not, I won the marketing contest for UFC 1. It was $50.
Wow.
And it was owned by Summer 4 Entertainment Group,
Awesome.
music group. And so it was just there from the beginning, and that's when it was like no rules, and it was eventually barred and whatever. But pro wrestling was huge, and I'd met like Hulk Hogan and all these great people, through all this stuff through cable pay-per-view. And I started a nonprofit in LA because it was a very bifurcated market. There were 33 operators, and this little entity named DirecTV came along and was just like wiping our face, because they would just outspend us. So we got together and we all banded together, and so I was the president of that for a couple of years. Well, while I was working at the cable company, that was my partner, endeavor. But I learned a lot, and so yeah, pro wrestling was always there. I was promoting it. It was WWF, if you remember that. And then towards the end of 90s, there was a big deal between who's going to be the bigger one, WCW or WWE, and that's how I met Mike, because he was at WCW. And he was always courting people to come, and the bigger marketers in the different regions, and LA was like my region, and just trying to get people to promote their stuff. And so yeah, along the way, I have two kids, and when they each turned 5 respectively, I got them into karate, and both of them are black belts. When my daughter started, she's younger, I started with her. And I've been doing karate for 11 years. So 8 years in, I got my black belt too, in Shotokan. So I'm actually kind of a fighter too. I was in a competition once. I won a couple of trophies.
Nice.
But I didn't want to do it as like a thing. It was just, I figured I used to dance. It's kind of like dancing, so, but I love it. And I think it's great for kids. And, so that was kind of how karate worked. I worked for Film On for Alki David, and he had a bunch of companies, Cinema Now and FOT and Film On and Hologram USA and et cetera, et cetera. I was actually head of content acquisition, and I wasn't doing marketing for a while. I got away from it for a little while. And then I was head of DirecTV at one point too. We were the only ones carrying UFC. Dana White came to my office and said, I hope, you will continue to promote us and stuff like that. And of course we did. And it was interesting to see when Zuffa bought them, how much they put into it, right? They really believed in it because they were multi-millions in the hole for a long time until Ultimate Fighter. And that's a whole other story. But anyway, and again, WWE was a huge property at DirecTV, right? It was different than promoting it on a regional level, now a national level, but really it's just adding zeros, right? I had more consumers and I had a bigger budget, but I'm still doing the same things that work. There's certain parts of marketing, I think, that you just kind of have to have there, regardless of the technology. And going up to karate combat, I'm trying to make this fast, this little resume here that I'm giving you. A friend of mine who I worked with at DirecTV, he had gone to UFC, and we were always friends. And he said, oh, these guys are trying to put together this karate league, so why don't you get an NDA and talk to them? Because he knew that I was looking for something. And we hit it off. We had nothing at the time. We didn't own karate.com at the time. We didn't have a name. So it was the first time I was able to be on the ground floor and actually build a league from scratch. And so we did a bunch of research and figured out what we wanted to call it. We had these great athletes, and they respected me because I am a karateka also, and I knew kind of how they felt, and it was an exciting sport. I'm really happy to see what they're doing. I was there for a couple of years, and then I went over to Fight. I've been here at Fight almost 4 years now.
Pretty amazing. As far as like Fight itself, what about Fight Plus? Are we seeing, big success there? Is that going well for you guys?
It's going well, and I think that it's going to be it's slowly becoming more and more of our revenues, because still pay-per-view brings in more money for us, but it's starting to shift. I think that especially I think there's some economic issues everywhere now. There's a lot of, everything's very expensive, and so I think that the SVOD model, the subscription model, provides a lot of value. And I think that's also why fast channels are popular too, because they're free with ads. People are willing to sit through ads if they have to not have to pay for yet another service. But I think that we're possibly one of the best sports values out there, because we're a lot more inexpensive, and we've got like 4,000 hours, and it's just getting more and more. And this year we made a very conscious effort. Actually, it really happened with our GCW deal last November. From there on, we decided we want to focus on offering a lot of live content, because that is where we get a lot of the most viewership of Fight Plus is live. It's exciting for people. They love being able to go back and see the history and the archive shows too, and or the regular taped TV shows that we add. But live is key to the growth, and we're talking to a lot of the majors to have resellers and other platforms where they can buy it. And I'm starting to do kind of top of the funnel marketing, where I'm going out to larger entities to work cooperatively and provide some rich offers. We already have an affiliate program in place. We're powered by CJ, which is one of the largest in the field. And that's been around now for a couple of years. It's pretty mature. Most of the media outlets are affiliates of ours, and it's free to join and free to use. So anyone can sign up to our affiliate program via CJ. So if there's any interest in that, let me know. That's why we get a lot of media. Because we don't tell people what to write. I'm a daughter of a journalist, a longtime journalist for the LA Times. So I have a healthy respect for journalism and PR and media and the written word. So we would never tell you what to write. But if you add a link so people can buy it if they want, then we give them commissions from any sales that convert.
Ah, very cool. And it's interesting that GCW is such a big part of it because now you guys added MLW. So it seems like pro wrestling is kind of dominating Fight Plus.
It is. And, we've always been kind of a pro wrestling company from the beginning, because it was really Michael Weber's idea, since his strong background in that area. He said, it's a great customer segment to go after. It's very mature. It's older than the MMA segments. And it's interesting that Endeavor has now AEW. I'm sorry. Whoops. Not yet. Maybe that's a future thing I'm divining somehow. But they have WWE and the UFC, which are very different audiences in a way. But the model is very similar. And, we love pro wrestling. The pro wrestling audience is very unique. It's much more loyal than a lot of the boxing and MMA audiences, especially the boxing audience, which is not very loyal. They like who they like, but once something's over, they rarely go back. Whereas with a pro wrestling fan, you want to know the history, and you want to go back, and you want to watch shows, and you want these storylines, and you want these really unique histories that converge. And it's amazing theater. It is athleticism, and it is a type of sport, of course, because the people in pro wrestling are incredible athletes. But there's so much more, right? There's all these personalities, and it really touches the hearts of people. And it's like reading a good book or something. You become really invested in these people. And that's the key for all fights, is you gotta care about the fighter. Well, whether you love them or hate them is immaterial, but you gotta care about them somehow.
Yep. Totally agree. I know Lavi's got a bunch of good questions for you. Lavi.
Oh, yes. And I had several prepared, but as we're talking, I have some more. So we might shift around a little bit. So, Kim, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Brett Lauderdale, GCW, is actually our most frequent guest.
I noticed.
And always a pleasure to have on. So just a little bit of the backstory. In talking to Brett, I know that, he had gone through the IWTV lawsuit, which was settled in, a satisfactory way, but seemed like apprehensive about tying himself in again. He was thinking about even like building out his own platform. So I'd love to know how you guys built trust together, and then he really committed himself to another service, which seems to be going really well for them and for Fight.
I think that a lot of people get these notions that well, why don't I just do it myself? I'll make more money. I don't have to share it with anyone. But then they get started and they realize it's not as easy as it looks. And especially these days, because now all the big boys are into streaming, Amazon's into streaming, and of course, Netflix and YouTube and Hulu and now all of the everybody, Peacock, and all the networks, the broadcast networks are getting into streaming. And so it's not just enough to have something on a website. Well, okay, can you have it in HD, and can you have live chat, and can you have overlays, and can you offer foreign language, and if you're going to go beyond the US, which you should, it's a very large world out there, and like we sell into 182 countries. There's actually more countries than that, but we're not everywhere. I don't know if we're in the Islands yet, but we probably are. But it's you have to be on every platform, right? And every platform like has an update. I mean, how many times is your phone saying a software update? Okay, now it's not only Android and Apple, but now it's your Roku, and it's your Fire Stick and your Chromecast and the smart TVs, and you have to have an app for everything. And of course, they're mostly different. I mean, yes, a lot of the smart TVs have HTML5. And so if you do, like we're on Comcast Xfinity, and that also works for Cox. Okay, so there's some similarities, but then you start going in different countries. And if you want to be on, a walled garden, like be able to be on PlayStation or Virgin Media in the UK, where we're also on, well, that's a different app. It's to be good. And then you have to be stress tested. And, we just have to point you back to the Tyson fight, when we had millions of concurrent live streams from around the world on different devices, and taking people's payments and doing customer service. Like we could have gone bigger, so but until you have these experiences, can you handle the load? It's a pain in the ass to speak in perfectly plain English, to deal with issues and consumers, and not that consumers are problems, just that people have questions, and if it's new, well, if yours is different, well, how, I mean, we struggle with it now, and we've been around for 7 years and been a leader in this space. Like, we built all our own apps. We own patents on these things. We're one of the first people that started the whole casting from your phone to, a TV. And, it's not easy. And if you own a league, don't you want to put most of your energies into your league and your fighters, and the creativity and some of the fun marketing stuff? Like, let us handle that. We'll work. I think that's why we've been so successful, is that we play pretty well in the sandbox with people. We're very straightforward. We pay our bills. We don't overspend on things, so that's why we've been profitable for some time. And, we just treat people like with the manner in which they need and deserve. Sometimes they don't deserve it. We still treat them nicely. And that goes from the CEO on down. So it's a culture. We do have a pecking order in a way, but it's very flat. Like, everybody has a voice, and we're all super fans. We all would be buying this stuff if we didn't work here, especially our social media guy. That's how we met him.
I'm sure you have some deathmatch wrestling fans in-house too.
Yeah, well, it's like there's just a lot of respect going along. And what a lot of people don't know is that we have a huge team in Sofia, Bulgaria. And that's where our CTO and CEO are based. And most of our graphics teams, it's all women, practically, that put these things together. All these like manly sports and stuff like that. I mean, there are some female competitors here and there, more and more. But I don't know that's common knowledge. It's like, it's all these women that are putting all these things together. They do all the artwork and all the, most of the descriptions, and like, they're very well versed. And that always blew me away when I came here.
Well, certainly respect to all of them for their efforts and work. So, in talking about something like the Tyson fight, and I loved learning how you helped to facilitate the acquisition by Triller eventually. Sometimes Triller goes really big, whether it's a Tyson, Triller Fight Club, Triad Combat, live versus. So I've often thought about it, like, when is it coming for wrestling? So an example might be like, there's talk about Goldberg doing a retirement show in Jerusalem, or Sting. right now it's just talk. But if I was promoting Goldberg, the first call I would make would be to you and Mike Weber and be like, can we work together and so on. So when might we see like a spectacle for wrestling rather than like some of these great promotions that we see like week to week?
Well, we did have, Ric Flair's retirement, and that was actually a very collaborative effort. It was mainly run by Fight, because of the relationships there, and we're the streaming engine. But we also worked with Thuzio, which is another company that did the live panels, and they're owned by Triller as well. And then, some of the Triller Fight Club people, you would help us out on social media and stuff like that. They're really kind of evolving that more into Triller sports, and so it won't just be fights. I think they want to broaden out, just as we will be broadening out as well. And we love pro wrestling, and we love AEW, and it's probably one of our biggest clients because AEW Plus is such a success for us, and we do incredibly well with their pay-per-views, especially when you consider we don't have US rights like we did once, but and it was amazing. It just made us lustful for that ever since. But it's okay. I went to see their show in Las Vegas last year, and I'll be seeing the one up here because I'm based here in Las Vegas. And I was blown away. For me, especially being a theater major in the background, they have already gone beyond like just sport. I mean, they did stuff that was like cinema verite. Like, I could not believe the stuff that they were doing as a production. I mean, it's just amazing what they do. They deserve all the success they're getting because they're just so good at what they do. And yes, I think that music should be more involved, and more cinematic stuff should be more involved. And we've been dipping our toes in the metaverse, and I think it's kind of Triller led, but we have a version that we're kind of doing with some celebrity boxing thing that's coming up soon. And the sky's the limit. Why not? And there are these icons that will probably be retiring, and they should have some great tributes. And I think it'll happen.
So as the success of Fight Plus grows, I'm sure it's on the radar of some of your partners that have the standalone services, as you talked about in the past, like an Honor Club, but an AEW Plus, Impact Plus, and so on. Are those conversations going on? Like, let's all be under one roof. You'll benefit, we'll benefit. Let's like all grow together.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see with AEW because they're so huge, and we love our relationship with them, and we're doing everything we can to help them expand internationally, because they are huge everywhere. And in the meantime, we're just happy to do things that help their subscription platform. As far as Impact and others, we're very friendly with them. So, they used to be part of ours, and then they went to do their own thing. Never say never.
Sure. Stay tuned, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Before I turn over to John, I'm wondering if you have like one story from your time in DirecTV or otherwise where it was like maybe Vince McMahon gave you a call and it was so memorable that 25 years ago that you want to share now. I'm sure like interacting with so many different big personalities, you have a lot of great stories. What's one story that you want to share for our listeners?
Well, I mean, I kind of alluded to it already when Dana White came to my office. I was, really starstruck because I liked, although I was more starstruck later on when I realized kind of what he had, ultimately built. But just the passion that he had. So rather than kind of talk about that one, I'd rather actually talk about a stunt that we did last year that was really interesting, and it's something that we may do again, and that was with the hologram. When we last November we had a fight between the great Manny Pacquiao and DKU. And Manny was in Seoul, South Korea at the time. And DKU, who's actually South Korean, was in Van Nuys in the LA area. And we beamed 7,000 miles away, Manny to the hologram studio. And they actually did the world's first like mono thing by hologram. And we just got so much press. We had more than 500 million PR reach from just those activities. And, we entered in a lot of contests. We're actually up for an award for Best Sports Partnership. It's Proto Hologram and Fight. And the award shows, I believe, are next week. I mean, we're in categories that include like Xbox and NFL and Red Bull and T-Mobile. And so, I'm not really holding out too much for a win there, but it's just so nice to be included in that category. So that's something that I'm really proud of, because everybody kind of got involved, and we got some of the troller people involved with that too to help us out. And it was just such a nice collaborative effort. And we love doing things that are like a big deal and stuff that's kind of futuristic. So I don't know, maybe you'll see another one of those things coming up one of these days. And I know that's not really kind of a story about, anything. I was trying to think if there was anything else that was kind of interesting like that. One is, when we did our karate combat event from Hollywood, we had so many stars. I had Lyoto Machida, come and Vitor Belfort and all these like karate guys. There was at one point Tyson was going to show up and then he couldn't. But one of the things that I thought was great, was I reached out to John Hurwitz, only because of the same last name. He's the guy, one of the creators of Cobra Kai. And I just reached out and say, hey, we Hurwitzes need to stand together. And we just became friendly. And they were filming one of the seasons of Cobra Kai at Paramount. And so it was just up the street from where we were doing a karate event. And I invited them, and they all showed up too, a lot of people from Cobra Kai. And so it was just nice when, you could get like-minded people and kind of celebrities together, and everyone was cool and friendly and a lot of respect. It is martial arts, right? So I hope that'll suffice for the
that's great. I think we could probably do a whole episode on UFC or on karate. Let me turn it over to John.
What is coming up next for Fight, and where can everybody find Fight, see Fight, and experience Fight?
Well, if you spell Fight correctly, it's FITE.TV, and we have a great website. And one of the things that we're really proud of is we did it on Android a couple of months ago, but really it's only been a couple of weeks. It's a wholly improved iOS or Apple app. And it has the most beautiful interface. I mean, you got to check it out. If you haven't looked at the Fight app, download it from your favorite app store. And you'll see that it's got much more sophisticated navigation, where you can not only scroll down, which is what we did before, but also across, just like you would with a premium, Netflix or Amazon Prime kind of app or ESPN app. It also makes it much easier when you want to see something in a different foreign language. It's just an easy toggle. We have more sophisticated chat functionality. The schedule is much more deep. We have a lot more information about Fight Plus, so it's much easier to have access to all the things that you want. And we're just so pleased with this new interface. I think it's, I'll put it up against any sports app. It's just so elegant. And elegant is a weird adjective maybe for a combat sports company, but it is. But actually we're more, because, we do carry soccer, and we had a World Cup rugby league games last year too. We are expanding into other stuff as well. So we want to be kind of your place for live sports and entertainment. We will never go away from pro wrestling and MMA and boxing, because, we love that stuff, and that's kind of, our heart. But we'll be offering all sorts of other things. And of course, we're all on all your social media. You can get us. Instagram and Twitter are the main two that we do a lot of stuff with. But we have 2 YouTube channels now. One is all about pro wrestling, and we're adding lots of content on there. One is just in general. We're on TikTok. We're on Reddit, in a smaller way. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, of course. And so, I mean, we're out there, and we're device agnostic. So we're on over 7,000 models of, or compatible with 7,000 models of smart TVs. We're on Roku. We're on, Amazon Fire. We're a native app on Samsung, which is the world's largest TV, LG, Vizio, you name it. But we tell people anywhere you can get Netflix on the planet, you can get us. If there's a Wi-Fi signal, you can get us. And what's nice is you can look us up on the website, and then you can go upstairs and watch it on your, smart TV, your Vizio smart TV or whatever. And then you can go downstairs and someone else can be pulling it up on an app, and they can be watching something on the phone. So it just follows you, goes wherever you want it to go.
Love it. Kim, thank you so much for all the time today. Really appreciate great storage. We're probably going to have you back.
Part 2, right? Maybe it'll
Yes.
be like the things that no one talks about.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you
you
so much, Kim. Appreciate all the time today.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I had fun.
Take care.
All right. And now let's take a little bit of a tour, or a little bit of a detour, if you will, to some news, Lavi, and let's talk about you. And let's talk about GC Dub.
Yeah, I'm not as young as I used to be, so I'm still recovering from my late night out in Brooklyn. But La Vie went to wrestling, my second GCW show ever. The first was, of course, at the Hammerstein, which we covered extensively here about a year and a half ago, if I'm remembering correctly. So a lot of fun. Loved the venue. I was sort of like, I think it's called the Intermedium, but I was looking up like, what is this place? So
it looks awesome. Yeah,
it looked great. I love that, like that look, especially for smaller shows where there's like a modest balcony above, like 4 rows of that. But there was space for people to standing room upstairs. There was standing room downstairs. It used to be actually a YMCA. And it's gone through a few iterations since then, but like beautiful venue, really easy to get in, and a fun show. I would say, like, I don't know if you could have walked up like when the show was starting and bought a ticket, but from my perspective, it looked packed. I don't think that you could have gotten many more people in. I think that probably it was sold out. It was full. That's for sure. I was trying to do a quick count. Upstairs, I had about 150. Downstairs, at least 250, maybe 300. So I would say like around 400 to be safe, which is what the website lists, in terms of the capacity. So that was that. It was a 3-hour tight show. Some really standout matches. Masha Slamovich defeated Alec Price to retain. So many people have seen now on my Twitter. I've been sharing that. Wanted to get a picture with Masha. She happened to have been outside. I was trying not to interrupt the conversation that she had. So I might have a little bit, but I did apologize. But she was very kind in taking a picture with me. She also liked the post, so that was nice. I remember that she must check her social media a lot, because when I happened to have seen her at Catalyst, a match there, I had posted her picture and she liked that. But in terms of like women in pro wrestling, so it was interesting because from that perspective, she was more than held her own. She's the champion. So like you didn't really, I don't think anyone was really thinking about it, man, woman, anything like that. So completely credible in that way. Interestingly though, and I know this was like, I didn't understand it at the time, so I was kind of harsh on it on Twitter, but Matt Cardona did have a legitimate family emergency. We don't need to know the details. I don't think they've come out yet, but so like there was things moved around, and then his protege said she's representing him, and it was pretty brutal to watch. It was a terrible, it was something that they just had to do, I guess, because
Yep.
they had planned to do it. But then Nick Gage came out, and he is who he is. But like in terms of talking about like, and you're not looking for GCW necessarily for like, for family values or whatever. But like here on one side you have like Masha, 100% whatever, and then Nick Gage is like saying she's a capital B and that she's so ugly, and he kind of like he didn't attack her, but like kind of like kicked her out of the ring a little bit, if I remember correctly. So like there was sort of like that dichotomy for me in my mind. I don't know if anyone was too worried about it, but it was sort of like interesting in that way. I guess it struck me as like a 43-year-old. Zack Sabre Jr. against Tony Deppen. On the scale of Zack Sabre Jr. matches, I don't know where this ranked, but it was a great match. Like, I'm a Zack Sabre Jr. fan from the few times that I've seen him. Interestingly, though, like in terms of the top of the card, I know it's always shifting, right? There's no one that's really fully committed to them, right? Zack Sabre Jr., New Japan, Tony Deppen, Ring of Honor, Masha Slamovich. Obviously, she has the dates to be their world champion, but she's connected to Impact Wrestling. The rest of the card, Jordan Oliver, of course, is a standout. I don't need to tell anyone that. Something that really stood out to me that I wasn't much familiar with was Sawyer Wreck. She'll be in the Tournament of Death match. So it's sort of like a little bit there also in terms of like a little bit, the woman went over in the match, but it was like a little bit sexist, and like they sat down and they were drinking beer together and like sort of like slapping each other. It was like a little bit hard to watch. I mean, on the scale of things GCW could do, it wasn't that hard to watch. But she really stood out to me as like she has great charisma. I think she'll be a star. I'm a little bit, and she can do whatever she wants, and I know that she has the experience already. Like, it made me a little bit sad that she's going to like a Tournament of Death. Maybe that's my own. Can women be men? It doesn't matter to me, but like, and somebody like certainly Moxley emerged from that world, but like for her to do that, it does have effects on the body, and hopefully, she, along with everyone else that's doing it, has that in mind. I think people are aware, but I think she could do much more, and maybe she will one day, and I'm sure she has already. Jimmy Lloyd, he fits really well with what they do. A great fit. One of the things that was interesting to me was that Joey Janela seems to be like, and this is like a one match example, it seems to be floundering a little bit. Like he was like one of the top stars for them, came back to the independent scene a while ago. And I'm not sure like if he has a focus. It might just been a one-off thing, but that was like interesting to see. Like, is he like sort of like spinning his wheels here? Maybe there's something else that he wants to try. 9 matches on the card, besides the birthday celebration, which probably they couldn't do much about after promising it and having so many changes. It was a fun show. For me, it wasn't as exhausting as the Hammerstein, being that like the pre-show at the Hammerstein was just exhausting. I forgot what they called like the Battle Royal, but like it just went on forever. And by the time that show started, I was just exhausted. And here you come in, 3-hour show, when it's going streaming, maybe you can't do a break or something like that. But it would have been nice to like have a little bit of a break. But, I would definitely want to go back to experience something like this. I've been also comparing it also in Brooklyn to Catalyst Wrestling. So a little bit different, both sort of like stood out in my mind. So it wasn't like clear to me, like, okay, GCW is like that top independent promotion, because Catalyst in the show that I some other like top-notch talent. So it wasn't necessarily like a complete, although the GCW probably had like more men, a lot of women too. Not, thankfully, not too many families. I saw one little boy running around, whereas the Catalyst Wrestling was a little bit more of a mix. Catalyst was also like on a Sunday afternoon. And a funny aside, as soon as I got, as I've been talking about on the show, I had a big meeting in Midtown. So I was coming with my suit and so on, but I wasn't wearing a jacket anymore. But as soon as I got on the line, a woman had said to me, "Oh, you don't look like you belong." So like you don't really belong here. Like not saying it like that I shouldn't be there, but like that that I didn't like it looked different because everyone else was wearing black t-shirt, which I understood.
You overdressed for the
yes,
show.
exactly.
Speaking of being maybe a little too fancy, what the heck is going on with NFTs? They're taking over the world again. I thought they were done and gone. Now they're coming back.
Yeah, so Impact Wrestling just announced their NFT collection. So eh, Gavin Bridge, like I haven't spoken to him about it with him recently, but like it felt like he was more optimistic about it, which made sense. Like for younger people, especially, like it's not necessarily always having something physical, but if you have like a one of one and it's digital, like that still has value to me. But I think like it was a hot thing and it went away, and now Impact has these NFTs for Santino Marella and Mickey James. Um, so there will only be 100 copies of Santino available, and each will include access to an exclusive Impact Discord channel within the server, a chance to win a special phone call, so you don't necessarily get it, but a chance to win a phone call, community chat, signed photo. Mickey James will launch this summer with the same utility. We're very excited to move into the NFT industry, something we've been capitalized a while ago. The NFT opportunities are endless, and we're certain that our loyal fans will be thrilled with the Impact NFTs. Media agency Rumble Gaming spearheaded this drop with the help of their partner ShopX. So, good luck on that. I think Impact certainly has a fair amount of fans that engage with the product on social media. Sometimes we talked about how many people are willing to buy, but if they could find 100 people for each of these NFTs, and that's not a lot, right? Then it'll be a success. So we'll see what happens.
What in the world is going on with Impact, though, outside of that? Because it seems like Trinity is making a big name for herself.
So this reminds me of like Cody Rhodes in terms of promotion on social media through the WWE, but even him doing so himself, where you don't always see that in pro wrestling that much, where like the star is highlighted. So I think Impact is doing a really smart job in terms of one of the way that they're marketing the shows. They're calling it Trinity Live. It's anyone can look it up, but it's her picture, and then it shows the upcoming events for the next couple of months that she'll be on. And she's new to the territory, as they say. She has a lot of buzz around her. So I think that's a really smart way, or one of the smart ways to market her. I think like as that slows down a little bit and as they return to markets, and they do tend to cycle back to markets a lot now, which is a good idea in some ways, that you won't necessarily be able to say like she's just going to be there live, but kind of find a way to have compelling matches or engage her in the product. So I think a step-by-step process is fine.
What's going on with Colby Carino?
So not all of the details are out there, but certainly we know he was doing his goodbye tour on the Indies. I had seen the match again at the same Catalyst Wrestling show. And, by the looks of it, he was going to NXT. Certainly his father works there. But we know that Colby's made some mistakes in the past, or had some issues in the past that seem to be well behind him. But for whatever the situation was, I have no idea. 7 years ago, something was flagged in the background check, which he said that when they've checked him before, like this was never an issue. So it seems to be like that he was supposed to be there, and now he's stuck. And maybe with the acquisition, they're not bringing so many people on board now in the way that they had planned for him. So it's a really sad situation. I mean, he hadn't completely committed himself to going, meaning that I think he was about to move, but he didn't move yet. I mean, the only worst example of recent memory includes his aunt, right? Allison Danger. Am I getting that correct? I hope so. Where she had moved out there to be a trainer and was not really given an opportunity at all, and sort of like described it as being left in the desert in the heat without many options. So not I mean, besides Steve, I'm sure being grateful for the job he has, but it's a shame for the extended Carino family that they've had these sort of experiences thus far.
What is the latest on the NWA and AAA relationship and Crockett Cup?
So the as Dorian Roldan had talked about, when you asked about more opportunities with the NWA, and very positive about it. So we see that come to fruition in a different way. So really smart to send some tag teams to the Crockett Cup. It spices things up for NWA. It gives some more exposure for AAA. So Octagon Jr. and Miss Disease Jr., sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, and Toxin and Aries will participate in the Crockett Cup. So I think a win all around.
What about as far as some studio wrestling going on? IWWA. What the heck is IWWA?
So for longtime listeners of the show, and we'd love to have him back soon, I should reach out. Adam Parsons of Jared Parsons, who distributes the classic wrestling, and it's really on nationally and so well distributed in terms of streaming services. So they've, he and his father, I believe, are the ones that run IWWA that have had this independent promotion for a while. So they're sort of expanding what they're doing here. They have some relationships already for distribution, Roku, Tubi, New England Sports Network, and so on. So, why not put out modern wrestling too to distribute if you can find the right price point. So smartly, they're filming in the School of Morton. So, either they're getting that for free or at a deep discount, right, in terms of the venue, and to expose some talent. So I always just enjoy, independent wrestling, studio wrestling, getting greater distribution, and wish them well. And it's something fun to follow.
For AEW, there's a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, they got the Wembley show, and even Blackjack Joe Lanza is making a prediction, I guess, for their $1 billion deal. What's the latest with AEW?
So the first time I heard the $1 billion, I was like, what? And then I went to lunch and I thought about it and I was like, it actually makes a lot of sense. 5 years, $1 billion. And Brandon Thurston broke it down very well. But if you imagine at least 5 hours of content a week, and then if they keep the Battle of the Belt specials, if they do something with streaming, if they do something with the pay-per-views through the Warner family, then it makes a lot of sense. So Joe Lanza had predicted even a little bit more, that he's hearing 1.1 to 1.2 billion. We might already have the answers by the time you hear this, but I think it's a game changer. They could be even more aggressive, about acquiring talent. It puts them in a different avenue. Obviously, people always say, oh, okay, Khan has the resources to do whatever, but they're not going to burn through all of their money. They're building something to be a profitable business. So if you're getting more money for rights, then it just puts you in a greater position as well. So a little bit of scuttlebutt going on about people concerned about, I don't think anything's really even been announced yet, but about how Wembley will be booked. And, there's a lot of British or UK based talent that's they're speculating that they'll be on the show, and people are worried, what will will it be AEW or sort of a tribute to British wrestling? And I think, you want to be careful of that, maybe to bring in 1 or 2 stars to harken back to the past or show your roots, especially those wrestlers that are affiliated with them now, but not lean too heavily, right? You're obviously going to do very well in the market. And the example that comes back very well to me was that when Billy Gunn faced, I think, Tanahashi,
yes,
at the G1 Special USA. Now, Billy Gunn's career and coolness has been rehabbed a lot, especially with the Gun Club. But back in those days, it was sort of former DX. Yes, that holds a lot of cachet, but he was sort of making his way on the independent scene. I think that was around the time he was cast out of WWE from being a trainer and so on. So it wasn't it was sort of and excuse the comparison, but if you were coming to the US and generations ago, you'd be in the early 90s, you'd be I have to book Greg Valentine, I have to book Brutus Beefcake, and so on, because they were big stars, so that I make my inroads. But really, it's your unique niche that's bringing the talent. So you have to make sure to focus on that.
Finally, what is going on with this Senate bill? What is this?
Yes, so I wrote my first letter to an elected representative. So this inspired me. So Senate Bill S 5953. So not a lot of details actually that were listed, but basically they're going to look at if pro wrestling should continue to be regulated by the New York State Athletic Commission, which would be a pretty
Interesting.
big deal. Apparently at the GCW show, like somebody from the commission was like very visible and sort of like looked a little bit grumpy with a notebook. Sort of like I was kind of wondering if he would like jump in the ring at some point, be like, no, stop the
Yep.
show. I mean, there was nothing that I think would have elicited that in Brooklyn, but I think like the question of commission is a difficult thing because often how commissions are run, and I don't know New York State in depth, but often like it could be ineffective and people feel that they're charging a lot of extra fees, but also there's that oversight and accountability when it's working its best, both in terms of getting a percentage of the making sure that the wrestlers are paid, that that there's health tests being done, that there's medical coverage, and so on. So I think it's a balance. So I would say like that it shouldn't be repealed, but maybe improved or redesigned in a way that's effective for all.
All right. Good stuff, Alavi. Good points this week. I love it. Thanks to Kim for coming on. But let's hit the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. Lavi, what do you got?
Check out Lion Cub Job Search for my long form articles, lioncubjobsearch.com. Follow me on Twitter, Lavimarg, LAVIEMARG, and check out our LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business, Pro Wrestling Industry.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week, folks.